That's a good one. All right. So Michael D. Shaw is here. We are live. Charles Moscowitz, thanks for joining me, everyone. Obviously, I wanted to talk about has New York City elected a communist? But before we go there, I really want to address a news issue. It's a news-driven program, and it's the most important issue right now, as far as I can tell. And that is the ongoing shutdown of Congress. I see this in the context of another attack on Trump, another attempt to stymie the administration, to slow Trump down. In the first term, they used phony conspiracy theories like Vladimir Putin conspired with Trump to steal the election. And then after he fired Comey, who apparently was one of the architects of that, they then launched the Mueller group, which distracted the administration for 3 years with leaks and with nasty tactics. Then when that fell apart, they then launched the perfect impeachment. When that fell apart, they launched the pandemic. When that fell apart, they launched the stolen 2020 election. And by the way, I have some insider information on that I can't get into right now, but I'll be developing it. And that is still developing. When that didn't work, even though they took him out of power, they did the phony insurrection to try to nail the coffin shut. And that led to another impeachment, even though he was already out of office. And then, of course, during the interregnum period, they launched an agenda to bankrupt him, to shoot him, to destroy his family, to try to destroy his image in any way they could with phony charges, to try to have him disqualified on ballots, to raid his wife's underwear drawer at the house. I mean, all of these horrible events. And none of it worked. He was reelected with a large majority. And so now the attack is two-pronged. First of all, you've got the insurrection by federal judges who've decided to just make up rules that say that Trump cannot function like any normal president has done so. He can't fire people in his own cabinet, in his own executive branch. He can't defund things like Planned Parenthood or other organizations, the Harvard. Apparently that it's in the Constitution that these people get taxpayer money now, right? He had all these other things, and that's not really working for them. It's slowing things down, but the Supreme Court, even the liberal Supreme Court judges, they know that's not going to work because it's not constitutional, and those things are being overturned. So now they're just shutting the whole government down. And I have a feeling that they're going to ride that right up till the midterms. The government is not going to reopen. What do you think, Mike?
Well, I think you're exactly right about all those points. But maybe the overriding thing that we should emphasize a little more is it shows beyond any shadow of a doubt that the Democrats are nothing more than destructive Bolsheviks.
Yeah.
They haven't built anything ever. They only tear down. And which is really pathetic because this has become the modus operandi. And you've given various iterations of how it occurs. And while that's very interesting, the bottom line is destruction. All right. They can't do anything. They can't create anything. They have no ideas. They have no soul. So they have to destroy. That's it. It's very simple.
Oh, I think you're absolutely right. I forgot to mention the no kings nonsense, right, which it really didn't work for them. But I guess you're absolutely right, of course, Mike. But the main question is, are they going to pull it off finally? All these other things slowed things down. They threw monkey in the wrench, they were a monkey wrench in the works, but they all basically blew up eventually. This time around, I think they do have a certain this is as they've admitted themselves, they've got leverage here. If they don't get their way, they're going to shut down the government. This is how they're going to overturn the big, beautiful bill by forcing.
Well, right. But here's the point. Let them shut it down because what's happening now is some very nasty stuff is being exposed, right? We find out that a ridiculously high percentage of SNAP recipients are at the best legal immigrants and largely illegal immigrants. And you stop and ask yourself, well, wait a minute, why should 40 million people be on food assistance? What the heck is wrong? And you see that the Democratic Party said they wanted a giant Ponzi scheme to give out money. So go ahead, keep it shut down. More stuff is going to be exposed.
Well, it's one of those things. I mean, look, the Democratic constituency, and I hope TikTok lets me say this, is illegal aliens voting and getting money for things like SNAP, which they send back home or whatever. And if that gets shut down, I did get a restriction from TikTok for that. If that gets shut down,
boy, that was quick.
I know. Well, that's a no-no. That would lose their constituency. I'm going to stay with TikTok for now.
Well, they have one other constituency, which we should talk about. Angry white women.
Indeed. I'm going to, something, before we go any further, Mike, I'm going to shut down TikTok. That's too much for TikTok. Thank you, TikTok. Check out the show at charlesmoskowitz.com or Charles Moskowitz Live, and have a great afternoon. All right, so much for them.
Boy, that was pretty quick, though, you have to admit.
Yes. I mean, look, and this is the same constituency that was, along with the over 80 crowd, the core of the No Kings movement, and they elected Mamdani in New York. It's generally well-educated white women who are upper class, married and not married. This one's going to get me in real trouble, but frankly, there might have been a lot of them that have had abortions. They are disgruntled.
Without a doubt. I mean, I'll interrupt by mentioning Michael Savage's favorite thing: Upper East Side women who had hysterectomies. That was his big thing. He got in a lot of trouble with that.
Yes,
because there's a lot of people who get hysterectomies for legit medical reasons, but the point he was trying to make was that it's also a way of lowering the fertility, right? I mean, that was his implication. He never said it. Okay.
Yeah, and also, I mean, let me just throw in a little sidebar here on that, because years ago, I don't remember her name, but she was an activist who had a hysterectomy when she shouldn't have had it. She didn't need it, didn't want it.
Yeah.
And she said she discovered after researching it, because it really negatively affected her life.
Yeah.
Can you imagine? I mean, that the hospital had spent $1 million on this new equipment and they wanted to use it.
Yeah.
And it was partially that. I mean, that's a lot of the motivation of the entire medical establishment. That was a lot of what was behind the jab and other things, that we could discuss. But can you imagine how rotten that is, giving women hysterectomies?
Well, it's interesting you bring that up, because there was a woman who I knew pretty well, Beverly Hills OB-GYN, named Vicky Huffnagel.
Okay.
And she got herself in a lot of trouble by mentioning just this point, that too many women were getting hysterectomies. The problem is, and I remember talking to her about this, the problem is she was right, but that didn't mean that every single hysterectomy was wrong.
No.
She went off the deep end.
Okay.
She got in the face of the Beverly Hills, West LA medical establishment, all the Cedars-Sinai mafia, the whole bit. And she went from having a pretty elite career to having nothing because she pissed off the wrong people. And the problem was she was right, but like so many people that I've known in my life, just because you're right about something doesn't mean that that's the universal theory of existence that applies to everything. All right?
Yeah, people can go overboard. Of course, there are reasons for hysterectomies. I mean, that's not what I'm saying either. Yeah. I'm simply saying that they were inflated, and there were people who did not really need them, who were convinced of it partially for profit and partially because of what Michael Savage talked about, kind of a population control agenda. And I think that I recall listening to a conversation on NPR here in Boston. I probably have mentioned this, where women were talking about this new phenomena of women as they get older feeling regret for their abortions, wondering what it would have been like if I had had a child. And there was depression involved, and there was a lot of mental issues involved. And these women were sitting around trying to figure out how are we going to deal with this? We're pro-abortion, and what are we going to do to save abortion? And eventually, they looked disturbed. I mean, they were like, this is a problem. And the conclusion generally was that the answer was psych drugs. Put them on drugs. They'll feel better. Give them an upper, right? Rather than, cover this up. This is, in other words, they were sweeping it under the rug by medicating people. And I think that there's a lot of that, quite frankly, going on. There's a huge proliferation of that, particularly among women. We've talked about this. Women of all ages.
I mean, Chuck, unfortunately, that's nothing new. I mean, the attitude of organized medicine toward women, even before these more powerful drugs existed, was, hey, you know what? They're a little nuts. Give them something to quiet them down.
Don't listen to women. Exactly. Just put them on a, they don't have a problem. I mean, and these are liberal women talking about this too, who really should know better. And, there's a lot of a rise in mental illness and emotional illness and psychiatric and social work help and therapy. I mean, this is the core of all of the sort of the soft sciences that are to deal with the manifestations of the problems they caused with their rotten ideologies. And women who are also mildly regretful with regard to some of the hard sides of feminism. Now, I'm not against feminism per se. I mean, I support equal pay for equal work, and women should have all the blessings and benefits of society that men have. But there is a darker side to it. The denigration of the family, the denigration of marriage.
Right.
I'm going to get in real trouble for this one, but maybe the promotion of lesbianism. Now, I'm not saying that
that was always part of it, unfortunately. And what they never did, which they should have done, is repudiate that side of it.
But now you have a lot of women who have at some level a certain amount of regret, and they are resentful and they're angry. So what do? They go out and they vote for a communist in New York because a lot of these.
Well, here's the thing, and sometimes it goes in a slightly skewed direction. Look at Jane Fonda, who now is getting rebuked in her old age. She's 85 years old.
Yeah.
Actually more than that, I think 87. And she's now getting put down by the other liberal women because she just doesn't see.
She's not hardcore enough for them.
She's, it depends how you want to look at it. She's hardcore in the wrong issues. Okay.
I remember in the 70s, there was a big controversy. They called it the Jane versus Joan. And this had to do with that Joan Baez, another left-wing activist, she was critical of Pol Pot in Cambodia when it turned out that he had committed genocide against something like 50% of his own country. She said, I'm not happy about this and I'm against it. And Jane was like, no, we have to stand with this because this is a communist revolution and it's, crack a few eggs to make an omelet. And there was like a falling out there. There was like an argument.
That's right. But here's the point. They never cleaned it up. Okay. Right. It was all a bunch of damn Bolsheviks from day one, even to the point that Putin himself jokes about the Bolsheviks in the U.S. So as an end result, you have a lot, and it's not just women, but that's what we're talking about now.
This is
a lot of these women that really is self-hatred. Maybe I really should have had a kid. Maybe I shouldn't have spent 110% of my time on my quote career. Maybe there's more to life than this crap. But
Yeah, exactly.
But
But
how do you get
back, it's too late, and they don't want to admit it. They don't want to acknowledge that they had embraced a wrong thing, that they had wasted a large piece of their lives. And so they vote for communists in New York. And that's the constituency, that's the core that voted for Mamdani, along with self-hating Jews. It didn't help matters that Cuomo was so, awful. I mean, that, talk about, stuff he did with women and leaving people in nursing homes with COVID active people. And just, I mean, so that didn't help matters either. But they still went ahead and they did it with a certain anger, like, yeah, F you. Now, on the surface, some of the things that Mamdani has talked about are similar to what Trump talks about, but their intent, their motivation is the exact opposite.
No, of course.
Mamdani.
I have to ask you this: how come the Republicans couldn't come up with anybody more dynamic than Curtis Sliwa?
Yeah.
And saying that, how come nobody else was able to run against Mamdani as an independent or whatever?
It's because the Republican Party sucks. Look at what's happened. I mean,
the stupid party and the evil party, right?
Yeah, I mean, you had in Virginia, for example, the candidate Sears, I think her name was, Winsome Sears. She was brought in by Youngkin, who's turned out to have been a complete failure. He, the minute he got into office, he's this rich guy who was bored. I'm glad he was elected, and it was important as a show of how Republicans can organize like that. But he was immediately bored with the position, and he started running for president. Started going out to California. He started to meet people. And Sears was brought in as an anti-Trumper. Apparently, she would attack Trump, very much like DeSantis, actually. And so she didn't.
That didn't work out too well, did it?
No, and Trump was not mentioned. He was not brought in. He didn't. If they had, supported Trump, I think that they could have had a shot at it. And the same, and in New Jersey, you had Ciccarelli, who was just an outdated old Republican who didn't understand MAGA, didn't understand Trump. He distanced himself from Trump until the very end, when it was too late. And, he was kind of running as a Chris Christie kind of Republican, very timid. If they had come out and embraced Trump, I think they could have had a chance. This is the old...
So this is it. It hasn't really changed from the stupid party to the evil party. I mean, you're exactly right on those characterizations. On the one hand, they're saying, well, there was no Trump effect because he wasn't on the top of the ballot. That's not right. What happened was these weren't even remotely similar to Trump Republicans, these two.
Right. No, they held Trump off at arm's length. They did not want to. I'm sure that Trump would have helped out if he was asked.
Well, you have this weird thing in Virginia, because remember, I lived there for nearly 20 years.
Yeah.
You have essentially a red state, except you have Northern Virginia, that's basically DC, okay?
Right.
Which is super liberal, more liberal than probably where you live.
It's all government employees. I mean, this is Greater Washington, D.C., right?
It's the government at all levels.
Right.
Fairfax County Public Schools is the biggest employer in the state of Virginia. So there's a lot of public employees that live there. All right. Now, it's just a geographical accident, right? It's convenient for DC, and there are plenty of federal government offices in Northern Virginia and in Maryland, for that matter. But it really isn't actual Virginia, although you can make an argument that George Washington and Robert E. Lee came from Northern Virginia.
Right.
but I think that's a little outdated. So
Yeah,
it's
that's old Virginia. That's the old domain.
yeah, the old Dominion per se doesn't
Dominion.
exist like that. And by the way, the only reason Glenn Youngkin got elected was it was very convenient that this whole Loudoun County, which borders Fairfax County, Northern Virginia, the whole Loudoun County business with the schools and the assault of girls by boys in the girls' restroom, all this crap was occurring. And the guy that was running against Youngkin, who was an old Clinton guy.
Oh, yeah, right. What's his name? Terry.
Terry.
What's his face?
We'll think of it in a minute. He didn't really attack it, and Youngkin saw that as the issue, and that hit really as an October surprise. And yeah.
But the other thing that Youngkin did that worked well, and Trump has made reference to this now, and rightfully, is that he put together like a street team of thousands of volunteers.
Oh, yeah.
Manned the polling places, manned the counting rooms. He had a team of lawyers on call in case anybody saw anything funny. And people did drop dimes, and they were ready. And the organization,
there was no question about it.
It was well-heeled, well-paid for. They really, and now you have the same thing with Trump is saying that we have to have legislation to clean up the election system, just like we're cleaning up the border, just like we're cleaning up illegal aliens, just like we're cleaning up foreign trade, just like Trump is cleaning up a lot of things, the crime in the big cities. Now you have to have a cleanup of our election system. Yeah. It has to be one day. They should declare it a national holiday so everybody gets it off, maybe even paid. Their absentee ballots have to be reduced down to just military personnel overseas or somebody who can make the case that they're not well enough and they can demonstrate that. I mean, very carefully managed, and that you have to have a signature on file with your county clerk to match the ballot. It has to be a method. Voter ID and all of that, they have to get that done. This country has a corrupt electoral system, and by the way, we always have. We've never gotten that right, going all the way back to Jefferson, who stole the election of 18.
Yeah, I mean, I don't disagree with that, but I'm afraid that if you focus too much on this election fraud issue, you're going to miss the bigger point of there's a lot of angry people that either voted, let's say, for Mondami as some sort of weird FU to the establishment,
right?
Hate their life, whatever it is. And as I've always said, fraud, you can't win an election with fraud unless we're otherwise very close. All right?
Right, yeah.
The big issue is hearts and minds, and Republicans have done a terrible job of that. They always have. They always choose the wrong candidate, with some notable exceptions you can mention over the years, obviously including Trump. I mean, you can go back, pick any time in history. FDR ran against Wendell frickin' Willkie.
I know Willkie was to the left of FDR.
Yeah,
he was his book. He published a book just before the election, One World.
Yeah,
right. I mean, this is like John Dewey, Thomas Dewey was very weak. I mean, it was, it's just I mean, they're like Me Too Republicans. They want to. We're just like you. It's like kind of. It's like what Phyllis Schlafly said: a choice. We want a choice, not an echo. She was very prophetic in many ways. Yeah. I interviewed her several times. Great woman. Met her a few times. Really admired her. She had guts. I mean, she was like Trump before Trump.
She was. But then look at your New York City election. Again, you take a guy who was well known, Curtis Sliwa. Not really, I don't think, a particularly dynamic character.
Right.
So somehow he becomes a candidate. You're telling me that in entire New York City, you couldn't have found a better guy?
I know. It's like you'd think that there'd be somebody who might step out of Wall Street or something, I guess. I don't know, somebody who maybe had some real gravitas to do this. I mean, I don't know what the hell.
Well, I mean, if you think of it on a global scale, I've always had this argument in the sports field. I'll tell you what it is. The U.S. has never been able to field a decent soccer team. Okay? Never. All right?
Mm-hmm.
So my question is, you have 340 million people in this country. Lots and lots and lots of immigrants.
Right. A lot of
Why
talent.
the hell can you not find 20 guys who could play soccer? Well, it ends up being, I believe, some sort of weird cultural issue. All right? You're always going to look in the wrong place. You're always going to find the Wendell Wilkie type guy. It's like, what is wrong? Where is it so rotten in the organization of this that they always have to lose?
It seems like the only time they actually win is when they pick some mediocre guy who's kind of, they figure he's going to be controllable. And then once he's in office, he suddenly becomes something else. I mean, right now there's this miniseries on Netflix about James A. Garfield,
Yeah.
right? He was like one of those people. I mean, they picked him because they couldn't break the deadlock at the convention.
Right.
And he was kind of a well-liked but unknown congressman from Ohio. But he stepped into that office and he turned out to be a powerhouse. So what did they do? They assassinated him.
Yeah. Well, that's the other side of it.
Yeah, and then they had Chester Arthur, who also was one of these guys, kind of, corrupt a little bit. He was a New York, street healer. I don't know, whatever.
Semi-affable.
Yeah, right. He liked to dress well. He was liked to party. They figured, here's somebody we could control. And he then becomes president, and he steps up and becomes a pretty decent guy. I mean, he's sort of put in place some real reform, and he basically told all the machine people to go screw. Yeah. So it can happen, but it's an exception. It's, and it's not something that the establishment expects. I mean, I think JFK was one of those types too, by the way. And look what happened to him.
Yeah, exactly. Look what happened to him.
Yeah. I mean, you get people who actually have good intentions and they believe in their office and in the country, and they're maybe a little naive, or maybe they do understand what they're up against, like Trump, I think, does. But yet they just go with it anyway, and they take precautions. It's unusual in history to have that. But here we are now with this Mandani. I know somebody in New York who, I know her very well personally, who has told me that he's not going to get anywhere because he's such a mediocrity. He didn't do anything in the city council. He doesn't know how to get anything done. So they'll just wait it out and then he'll go away. I think that's optimistic because I think he's backed by powerful leftist machine with George Soros and with others. And they're, getting rid of him and getting rid of his ilk is going to be like getting rid of Castro or getting rid of any of these other communists. They'll never go away once they have power, once they consolidate that power. And I think that's what's going on. And now you have a phenomenon where suddenly real estate values in Florida are going up because all the Jews are leaving. They're moving to Florida.
Well, what was interesting, if you look at the demographics, the real Jews, i.e. people that are actually believe in the religion, did not vote for Mandani.
No, people who actually work for a living. No, he got the upper class. They'll even admit that. Working people, blacks, Hispanics, working white people, I mean, he did not get that vote at all. Right. But they had nowhere else to turn. I mean, Cuomo was so loathsome. Yeah. Such a horrible individual.
Well, I think by Cuomo running, it assured that Mandani was going to win.
Exactly.
Everybody hates the guy.
and
And,
for damn good reason. He's a horrendous human being. And so you have now, I think, Mandami stepping in there, and I get it. He could see an opening, and he grabbed it. And he's cute on TikTok, and he knows how to play the political game. And people just people are so stupid. I mean, a lot of people just, they kind of go with that kind of thing. I remember when Hillary Clinton was running and talking to people, and they go, "Oh, well, we're going to vote for Hillary because we want a woman." I'm like, okay, so then you're voting for Hillary's vagina. It's like you don't know anything about her. You don't know who she is. I mean, it's so stupid. It's like, what the hell are they thinking? I mean, who cares?
well, but you got to cut people a little bit of a break in this sense. All right, the educational system in the U.S. has been a disaster since the early 1960s.
Yes.
So now, obviously, there are some people, not too many, there are some people that can overcome a public education in the U.S., but most people can't.
Right.
And they become this way. And we talked about the model UN and that same old thing. But, you're rewarded by having the correct opinions on these things. And I look back at what it was like in high school. Every single teacher was liberal, to the point that it was frankly ridiculous.
Yes.
There was I'll never forget this. There was a monograph that they gave out in the 10th grade on the Soviet Union. And we were studying that, and it described the political system. And then there was a section called "What's Wrong with Marxism?" Now, the student teacher was running the class at that point and said, okay, what's wrong with Marxism? All right. And then we hear all this leftist claptrap, and my head is starting to explode, But this was the pablum that was being put out. And, let's be honest, a whole lot of the smarter West LA kids were liberal, and they just ate this up.
Yeah, I know, it's sad. Even in my course right now, which is a very left, the professor is actually a brilliant guy, and the reading list is pure Marxism from these egghead, ivory tower, white, often not American professors and authors who have really been on the top of the sociology platform. And what they have to say technically is very good. Their research, the data is fine, but and some of their analysis is also quite fine. But you have to look at it in the context where it's meant, which is that their intentions are not good. Their intentions are to use this data, which is true, to denigrate and destroy the United States and
Right.
other sovereign nations and religions, and ultimately the sovereign individual under God. Their intentions are using good data, good information, good history in a negative way. And on the surface, you could say that they look at it as a glass half empty instead of a glass half full, although it's very difficult to look at anything positive about slavery or Jim Crow or some of the ways Black people were treated in this country. I mean, I'm totally with them on that. But their answer to it is to not empower Black people, lead to freedom, lead to entrepreneurialism, lead to a lot of the stuff that Booker T. Washington talked about, which is to develop skills at a street level and then begin to not these quick fixes like what W.B. Du Bois was into, who was a communist, but just to really develop institutional power through growing from a very low place and developing practical skills, starting to accumulate capital, and in the face of racism, which is quite real. But their thing is, to throw the racist piece in the face and call for like a overthrow of those things. And the result has been, I mean, boy, I mean, I've talked about some of this stuff in the discussion part of the course, and that's lit up like a Christmas tree. People, I can't believe I'm saying these things, and it's very interesting. I hope I don't get in trouble, but you know, I mean, already I've had a couple of professors give me a low grade, which I didn't deserve, but I'm not going to fight it. If I was, I can see how, you know, young people who are just in college after high school or they're trying to get a career, how they might conform themselves a little bit. You know, they might kowtow because they don't want to get flunked. But for me, I'm too old for that. I'm not going to do that. I don't care.
But you're the exception that's proving the rule. I mean, the thing is, if you were 20 years old and you're going through this class, and remember, Chuck, if this is what you've been exposed to since the time you were 5 years old,
and you don't know any better.
And, you know, I mean, I hate to blow my own horn here, but unless you're, you know, a smart ass like me and a rebel, and there are people like that, you're going to just conform to it.
You are, you internalize it. And then, of course, you have parents who are spending 85 grand a year. And, you know, you want to have a career, you want to fit into the world, you know, you want to have a girlfriend, you know, you want to get invited to parties. I get it. You know, I understand that. I don't care, you know, because I'm old. I'm not in it. I'm not looking to get a new career at this stage of my life.
But you're viewing it from that point where you can see how people get dragged into this crap.
I do see it. Yeah.
Now,
and I appreciate
the good news, and I think the thing that's finally going to break miserable academia is the fact that it's too expensive. The job market sucks, and you'd be better off getting a skill. All right.
Well, yeah, but they've always denigrated non-academic skills. This is something Trump has talked about, and rightfully, like, you know, the guy who's runs a plumbing business or a carpentry business or a construction company or something that is assisting those professions, or for that matter, an artist or a musician or any of these fields where you don't need to have an academic degree. You know, I don't think that the Beatles didn't get college degrees to do that, right? I mean, you have something that's outside of the college system. I mean, and you and it's honorable and it's good and you can be successful and contribute and be happy. I mean, we're taught up to believe that you have to have this academic credential, and that to get that academic credential, you become part of a cog in this machine.
Yeah.
And I think Trump has gone a long way toward discouraging that, talking about the trades, talking about apprenticeship. Sam Blumenfeld, the late Sam Blumenfeld, was into this.
It was way ahead of his time.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. You know, homeschooling, he was one of the leaders of the homeschooling movement. And he encouraged people to get their kids out of these public schools and even a lot of private schools. And, you know, they demonize you when they're saying, oh, you're going to not be socialized. That's BS. They have enormous activities with each other. They go to museums. They go to, you know, baseball games. They study together. They have study sessions. It's very social. It's just, that's BS. And when toward the end of Sam's life, the homeschooling movement was really growing. I mean, he was invited to Australia where it was starting to grow. And even liberals were getting into it, not just conservatives and Christians.
Yeah.
Because a lot of liberals are like, hey, I don't want my kid to get, you know, screwed over by this system that's creating.
Well, let's not forget one thing, and I'm not sure what Sam's opinion was on this. You can go ahead and send your kid to this public school, but you have to be involved. And if he comes home with some claptrap, you have to set him straight.
Yeah, you can. I mean, you can look at my daughter went to public school and she did not fall into this stuff. Well, she did a little bit, but but for the most part, she has maintained a strong, independent intellect. And it's because I was involved. and she might not have liked my involvement in it sometimes, but she heard it, and and she looks back on it now and says that I'm responsible for creating who she is as a PhD student in history, and that her whole development as an intellect was because of me, even though she might not have expressed it, even though she might have been angry at me at the time. She looks back and realizes that I was able to plant enough seeds and have enough conversations and influence that she's really gone her own course. So it can be done. I'm not trying to pat myself.
I mean, a lot of people are very busy, can't invest the time or don't want to invest the time.
But I would say to those people that even if you just, and look, I'm not holding myself up here as some paragon of virtue, but even if you just spend 5 or 10 minutes a day with your child alone, it's going to make a big difference. Just check in with them and find out what they're doing, listen to them, try to get a gauge. I mean, I'm not saying I always did this. I missed a lot of things. But, try to keep that contact, and, and also do that with your spouse too, by the way. Even if you're not getting along, even if you're not on speaking terms, try to make contact once a day, and even if it's just for 5 minutes, even if it's to talk about something trivial, keep the conversation line open. It just, you have to maintain that. That's, I think, part of being the father, by being the husband.
Yeah, well, that's right. A lot of people don't do it.
Right.
Maybe they can argue they're too busy. And you have to get the kids in the right sort of activities, we always try to get them involved in sports, school sports, whatever.
Yeah, of course.
It's generally a positive influence. I mean, let's not forget that organized athletic competition, a large part of it, when it was organized by the YMCA and other related groups, was to foster, if not Christian values, at least decent values.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. And also just the competition and the camaraderie. Yeah. I mean, I think my wife, I give her a lot of credit for that, in that she pushed my daughter into sports and into things like studying violin and viola and ballet. And she was really pushing those things. And my daughter didn't like it, and she complained often, but I think it's created who she is. I mean, those things are all very valuable,
But so, if you prefer to use the school as some sort of advanced daycare,
right? Yeah, you just drop them there, and I'd see kids like that. They'd be in the extended day program. They would just be there all day, and the parents had no idea, nor did they even necessarily care, frankly. So yeah, I mean, there is a certain responsibility, and you want to mold the future, and you want to have a good impact, and for even just for selfish reasons, you want to have an impact on the world, by having positively affected someone's life. Anyway, I don't know how we got onto this, but
it's the idea that parents having to get involved, and I actually saw how this could go negative in my own high school career. Believe it or not,
right. Mm-hmm.
There was a girl who went to my high school that was not particularly popular. I think she had a lot of problems at home.
Right.
She became Patty Krenwinkel of the Manson gang.
Mm-hmm.
And now has the distinction of being the longest serving felon in the California prison system.
Yeah.
And, she needed some support, and she got it from Charlie.
Speaking of that, who was the actress that was in Murder, She Wrote? I'm trying to think of her name. Angela Lansbury. I saw something about her that if she had 2 children, a boy and a girl, and when they became teenagers, and she had a big career in Hollywood, things started to go wrong. I mean, they were like smoking dope, and they were like hanging out with bad people, and she didn't like what she was seeing. So she dropped her career and she moved to a small village in Ireland where her mother was from. It was very remote, very rural, with her children to protect them. And they lived there for a number of years. She kind of dropped out of Hollywood, maybe once in a while would do something, but for the most part, they stayed put there. And it turned out that the people that her children were hanging out with were the Manson people. So she was able to, she said, I'm getting out of Los Angeles. To protect my two children. And the children turned out well. I mean, they really, got over it, and they're fine people now. So,
he had really a lot of followers. And up until quite recently, there are still remnants of that whole group in the same kind of part of LA. But he was able to find a lot of disaffected kids.
There was this kind of thing was going on, not just in Los Angeles. Here in Boston, they had a cult like that. It was a Mel someone. He claimed that I'm God. And he had like a compound up on Fort Hill, which is a neighborhood in Roxbury. Still there, by the way.
Yeah.
And what was his name? And he was hanging out with musicians, and came out with a magazine, and it was a cult thing, and it was very much and he was a cult figure. It was very Manson-like.
Was Presley one of his members?
Who?
Ayanna
Presley. That's a good question. She could have been. I mean, he had one of this guys that was a member did this movie called Zabriskie Point, which was very popular. And then
that was a movie, yeah.
Yeah. And he sent him out to like rob a bank. He was kind of a dumb guy, nice looking guy. They picked him up on the street corner and brought him into the cult. And then he ended up being murdered in prison. It's kind of a tragic story, and there was some other people involved in this cult. But I have a feeling that this was going on in several cities. It wasn't just Manson.
Oh, for sure.
And I also have interviewed, years ago, I should look into this, that says there was a connection between all of this and the CIA.
Oh, absolutely. There's no doubt about
that. Okay, fine. Right? Changing the culture.
Yeah.
And that there was a connection between Manson and the assassination of Robert Kennedy. I don't know about that.
I had heard that also.
Yeah.
And I heard that he was an asset because you look at things that don't make sense. Okay. How did this guy get these followers? How did he get places to live? Where was the money coming from? And, unless you're selling drugs on a very large scale, you're not going to be able to support all these people.
Yeah, I mean, and there was a lot of that. Like Jimmy Jones, right?
Yeah.
Going down to Guyana. He had a lot of.
He was heavily supported by the Democratic Party, and there were plenty of pictures of him with Rosalynn Carter and others.
Oh, he was a major figure there. And then you had Congressman Ryan getting calls from constituents like, hey, there's something funny going on here. I need help. So he goes down there and then he's shot, and then the whole thing hit the fan. And most of those people were not drinking the Kool-Aid. They were murdered. I mean, there was a massive machine gunning. And that I think that somehow Congressman Ryan, one of the people that escaped, even though she'd been shot, his aide, she did, I think that, I don't know if she wrote a book about it, but she has done interviews about what they saw down there. And it was really, really scary. I think there were other cults like that seemed to be connected a lot. And we're getting far afield here, but a lot of the musicians, and by the way, they were great musicians, like Jim Morrison from The Doors and David Crosby from Crosby, Stills and Nash, Jerry Garcia. They had parents who were deep, like CIA type people, military people.
Yeah.
Now, some people have drawn connections between that. I don't know. Were they trying to influence the culture? Were they promoting their sons to promote drug use and whatnot? I don't know. This is interesting to think about. And by the way, I'm not taking away from their musicianship either. They were great musicians.
Yeah. There were things that, I've told my wife this many times, that sometimes you believe that 50% of what goes on makes no sense. And you have to look at how the hell this happened. I mean, the latest one in California that it got some national coverage was this Katie Porter.
Oh, yeah.
And she's going to be the governor candidate.
Yeah.
And if you look at her, she's a sort of nasty, let's face it, ugly.
Oh, I know. Get out of my effing screen.
Yeah. And so the question is, who decided that she was a leading candidate? Where did that come from? And
exactly. Who selected her? I mean, she's obviously not a very talented
person. Congresswoman from Irvine. And that was it. Okay. And even now she's trying to explain away her bad performance. But the point is, there's a lot of people in my state, and why anyone thought she was a leading candidate, it makes no sense.
All these people are like groomed for these positions. Yeah. A lot of them. Look at
who groomed her. I mean, she's the least likely person.
Who's that?
The least likely.
Yeah. Look at Newsom. Didn't he have like an affair with his best friend's wife?
Yeah.
Who was like a campaign worker? I mean, and he says, oh, and he admitted it. He says, I'm sorry, I made a big mistake. Really? I mean, what is so great about him? I mean, it's like what these people are like selected. I mean, Obama, right? He has a shady background. He came out of nowhere. All of a sudden, he's catapulted into the White House. Perfect.
Well, it was a decent choice, okay? If you think about it, he was this non-threatening, effeminate black guy.
Yeah.
And
I think Biden kind of blew the whistle on that one, right?
Yeah.
Good-looking, articulate black man. That's what we need. Yeah. He was like groomed for it, and probably at a younger age. His father was a communist activist. I mean, a lot of these people seem to have fathers who were communist professors. I mean, I think that you had, of course, Kamala Harris's father was a communist professor. Mamdani's father, by the way, a communist and an Islamist professor at Columbia, but he has coincided Mamdani's election with the release of his latest book, which praises and idolizes Idi Amin from Uganda. The guy was one of the most evil dictators in history. He was a cannibal. He was like eating his enemies. I mean, not to mention the Entebbe thing where he separated the Jews from the non-Jews, and they were rescued by Netanyahu's older brother, who died as a result. But I'm just saying that these are the people who end up groomed for high office. What the hell?
Why don't you write that book? No one has written that book. Where do these people come from? Who chooses them? And why do they all have to be related to communist professors?
That's a great topic for a book. I should do it.
You should do it because you're the only guy outrageous enough to want to do it.
But yeah, it's an ugly story. It's a dangerous story, frankly.
Oh, it's horrible.
Yeah.
But I mean, this is what I mean. I don't want to get you on this because it really throws you off. But you start thinking about stuff, and this was a few months ago. I came to the conclusion that, damn, a lot of things do not make sense. Where did this guy come from? How did this occur?
I started out the conversation by saying that I had just heard of something I don't want to talk about. I'm going to talk about it briefly because I'm not mentioning names. But I had a very interesting private conversation with someone who was involved, big liberal Democrat, professional guy, happened to be black, from Atlanta, came from like a high-level Atlanta black family, worked for members of Congress, lived in Washington. he was involved with the 2020 election. And the stuff that he saw going on there was so bad. And I mentioned the name of Stacey Abrams. He said, don't even mention that name. That he ended up dropping out of it. He's changed his career. He just left politics completely. Still a liberal Democrat. Still hates Trump, sure. But he was like, what I saw go down there, that election in Fulton County, it kind of confirms everything we've talked about. Except this is someone on the other side saying it. Says, I'll never go public about it. I don't even want to talk about certain particulars. But it wasn't good. It was very corrupt. And I just think that I still believe 5 years later that we have to get to the bottom of it. Even now in Fulton County, there's this warehouse that has, I think it's like 400,000 ballots that were absentee that have not been audited. And there's new members of the Fulton County Republican Election Committee who are asking for them, and they're not giving them to them. They're stonewalling. I mean, I said to this guy, I said, do you think we'll ever get to the truth? He said, not in our lifetime. Someday when we're all, gone to our reward, some historian will finally open the door and they'll tell the story, because there'll be nobody alive who can really, they'll need to worry about. Or it could be like the Kennedy assassination. We'll never get to the bottom of it, ever.
No. But, going back to this Obama thing for a second, all right? And when Biden says, articulate, non-threatening black guy, so all right. Why him, though?
Because he was a left-winger, that's why.
But he's not the only left-wing effeminate black guy you could find, right?
I mean, they could have picked Alan Keyes. Remember him? People who tell me that there's, that Republicans are racist because they didn't support Obama, because that was the mantra for 8 years. Anyone who disagreed with Obama, they're racists.
Right, of course.
But Alan Keyes, there was a special election in Illinois. The senator, I think, had to go to prison. I don't remember who it was. And Obama ran. Who was it?
Blagojevich.
No, it wasn't Blagojevich. That was another thing. I don't think he got in
trouble. They all went to prison.
Yeah, he got in trouble for doing something that politicians do, which is, I think he took some money for selling the, Obama's office or something like that. But Alan Keyes was one of the candidates. And Alan Keyes is a folk hero among conservatives, right? He was like Bush's ambassador to the UN. He's a real pro-life. He's a conservative. He's a brilliant guy. I met him once. He's a great man. But I point out to them that had he won that special election and had he gone on to become president, conservatives would have been rallying around him like crazy. And he was, not to get into a racial question, but he was genuinely black. Obama had one parent who was white and one parent from Africa. He was, Keyes is African-American, had the whole experience. But because Obama was selected, then the disagreement with him had to do with his socialistic policies. It had nothing to do with his being black. Nobody cared about that.
Wasn't it convenient, by the way, that both of his parents were dead when he started running?
Exactly. We wouldn't hear from them. But, his background is pretty shady. I think he grew up, he was known as Barry Sotero.
Yeah.
And he was brought up by a stepfather in Indonesia. But these people they're just vetted and they're selected. Here in Boston, Massachusetts is notorious for that. And if you step out of line, forget about it. It just shows. That's why you have somebody who's a disruptor like Trump, someone who's a disruptor like John F. Kennedy. Right? They actually, they're not controlled. Anyways, but what do you think is going to happen now that Mamdani is elected mayor of New York? I know that a lot of people, Jewish people too, by the way, are leaving. They're moving to Florida. do you, I mean, do you think it's just going to be like in another, what's his face? That left-wing mayor,
Blasio.
de Blasio, who was just a windbag. He was a left-winger, didn't really do, nothing really changed.
Yeah, okay, what's going to happen is Mamdani is going to make a little more noise, but people are going to find out he's an empty suit. But unfortunately, that's the story of New York mayors. When
Right.
was the last good one?
Giuliani.
Yeah.
Giuliani actually set New York up, and I think even Bloomberg a little bit. They actually did set things up in New York. I mean, after having come in after Dinkins, who was a disaster, and it was elected solely because he was black. Giuliani came in. He brought in Bill Bratton, Boston police commissioner, criticized heavily for it. They had a philosophy of policing in New York that worked. You know, the broken window theory and other things. They cracked down on the crime. They cleaned up the subway system. They got rid of the squeegee guys on the street who were, attacking people in their cars. They were law and order, and they restored New York. And they also cleaned up. They did what what mayors are supposed to do. They fixed the freaking potholes. They put pavement on the sidewalks. This is what a mayor is supposed to do. It's a municipal office. Instead of a guy like Zondani, whatever the hell his name is, he's going to talk about world issues. Or reminds me in Cambridge, Massachusetts, a sister relationship with a Palestinian state. Hello, are you going to conducting foreign policy? How about cleaning up, Harvard Square's homeless population? It's like, in other words, he's not
grandeur, right?
I mean, they think they're mayor of the world. I mean, he's not going to, I don't know if he's going to do the actual work that needs to be done in New York, which is a municipal function. It's a city.
Well, he never had to before. When he was, with the state government, what did he ever do?
Nothing. I mean, city government, I think it was a city council, and that's what somebody I know told me. He's just a windbag. He's very ineffective. He didn't do anything. Just a lot of positioning and a lot of cute videos and just, in other words, as you say, an empty suit. So I think that that's probably where it's going to go. And I actually hope that is where it's going to go.
Yeah.
Because the alternative would be a real commie coming in and trying to reorder the society, which I don't think hopefully it won't happen.
No, I don't think. Well, I mean, one of his people said that they're not going to have any problems with the police because they're just city employees. Will tell what to do. Well, the New York cop mentality isn't going to sit still for that. So I think he's going to be a big failure.
Yeah.
But then, how do you get elected in the first place? I mean, how many disaffected, stupid people are there in New York? And I guess there must be a lot.
Apparently, and as you say, maybe some genuine people can step up. I don't know. We'll have to see. But it's very discouraging to see that. It's also very discouraging to see that horrible attorney general candidate in Virginia.
I was going to mention that. But,
yeah.
This was not a bug, my friend. This was a feature. He got votes by saying he wanted to kill his opponents. Make no mistake about that, because he was playing to his Bolshevik constituency.
Yeah, I think you're right. And I think that, the difference, and none of the other politicians would condemn it or it shows in a way how low this country's gone, because back in, I think it was 10 years ago, Ralph Northam, remember him? He became governor of Virginia. He's the one who said that you can abort the baby after it's born, to a program on NPR, because he was a pediatrician. And even the left-wing hosts were uncomfortable. It was pretty ugly. But pictures emerged of him doing blackface when he was in college, not when he was a kid, and a lot of them. And it was not nice. It was not good. And all of the Democratic politicians came out and condemned it. And they're like, this is terrible. And he apologized. And it was like, it was like at least a hearing over it. nobody was like ignoring it. Now, of course, when you have this guy talk about doing sadistic things to his Republican opponent and their children, none of them will say anything.
Yeah.
It's like not a single
Because
word.
they agree with it. I mean, it's pretty simple. Pretty simple to understand. You know, the official reaction was, well, that's not the Jay Jones that I know.
Or even worse than that, they said, well, I haven't heard about this. I'll have to look into it. It's like some kind of a corporate answer when you're like, we didn't do it and we'll continue not doing it.
No, they're all scum, and we should at least realize that.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, a lot of the Republicans are useless too. So
right. Horrible. Horrible. And I think Virginia will never see another republic. It's gone the way of, Massachusetts.
I think that killed it in Virginia was, remember McConnell?
Yeah. McDonald. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
With his stupid corruption that he tried blaming on his wife.
Didn't he do something like have his aides build like a roof deck or something like that? Something bad.
He was giving preferential treatment to some drug manufacturer, whatever the hell it was. And he was just sleazy. And again, the Republicans really didn't do anything about it. He lost the following election, but they're all scum. Okay?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And if you get a good guy, you just have to, it's by luck. And generally speaking, the good guys come from the outside.
Right. But I think that Virginia's gone, just like Massachusetts and New England. Somebody pointed out, you talk about gerrymandering. The state has the 6 states have probably pretty close to 40 to 42% Republican registered.
Yeah, not
a single congressman from all 6 states at this point. I remember this. I've seen it from the inside. They'll take the Republican part of the state and they'll divvy it up and put a little bit on one of the cities, and put another one here. And, it's just so corrupt here. And I think that's what's happening in all of these so-called blue states. They're just going to be one party, mediocre, rotten, corrupt people who are never going to be held accountable. They'll never leave. They'll be there forever, like Ayanna Pressley. And it's discouraging. Anyway, we'll have to pick it up next week.
We'll figure it out next time.
Yeah. All right, Mike. Anyway, thanks.
Good work.
As always, yeah. Thank you, too.
God
bless America, like I like to say. And we'll pick it up next